Hey, what's up guys, this is Angel from Apex Gaming, and today is a great day for PlayStation fans because we have big news coming from the PlayStation blog, and specifically a Wired magazine interview with some PlayStation executives that detailed a lot of stuff coming for the PlayStation 5. We got a deep view into the controller, new controller, the official name PlayStation 5, release window for the PlayStation 5. All of the details will be right here below, so if you want any specific information, please skip to that specific timestamp. But if not, I'm going to just read all this stuff. And yeah, let's begin. So today we had a PlayStation blog update on next-gen PlayStation 5 launches holiday 2020. This article is basically this, just officially revealing that the name of the console will be PlayStation 5 and that the release window will be holiday 2020. Then there's the Wired magazine mention about this this interview, and a lot of stuff that comes from the Wired magazine interview, specifically talking about the new controller, but the Wired magazine deepens into that a lot more. So let's go to the Wired magazine interview. So I'm going to scroll a little bit down because the first part of the article is just like a recap of what Sony has said before on a previous Wired magazine article. Okay, so let's go into information, the new information that we are having for the PlayStation 5. With that in hand, back to the PlayStation 5 solid-state drive, which Sony first extolled for the way it can turn loading time from a hassle to a blink. It's not just the speed that makes the SSD formidable, it says, but the efficiency it offers. Think about the hard drive in a game console, spinning like a 5400 RPM vinyl record. For the console to read a piece of the information of the drive, it first has to send out the disk head, like a turntable needle, to find it. Each seek, as it's known, may only entail a scant handful of milliseconds, but seeks add up. To minimize them, developers will often duplicate certain game assets in order to form contiguous data blocks, which the driver can read faster. We're talking common stuff here like lampposts, anonymous passerbys, etc. But data adds up too. If you look at the game like Marvel's Spider-Man, Sony says, there are some pieces of duplicated data 400 times on the hard drive. The SSD sweeps away the need for all that dumping, so not only is its raw speed dramatically faster than our hard drive, but it saves crucial space. How developers will take advantage of that space will likely differ, but some may opt to build a larger, more detailed game world. Others may be content to shrink the size of the games or patches. Either way, physical games for the PlayStation 5 will use 100 GB optical discs inserted into an optical drive that doubles as a 4K Blu-ray player. So we have the actual size that we will be using for discs that will be 100 GB and a new feature that is a 4K Blu-ray player into the PlayStation 5. However, game installation, which is mandatory given the speed difference between the SSD and the optical drive, will be a bit different than in PlayStation 4. This time around, aided in part by the simplified game data possible with the SSD, Sony is changing its approach to storage, making for a more configurable installation and removal process. Rather than treating games like a big block of data, Sony says, we're allowing finer-grained access to data. That could mean that the ability to install just a game's multiplayer campaign, leaving the single-player campaign for another time, or just installing the whole thing and then deleting the single-player campaign once you get finished, it is possible. So the possibilities that come with this, it's pretty amazing. I don't know, I think this is gonna be a very complicated thing to tackle the first times. Maybe we should be doing a couple of guides on how to install or uninstall all those things. I hope it's kind of clear in the user manual or something, or they just release a couple of videos detailing this stuff. But this is amazing. So yeah, imagine, I don't know, playing next Call of Duty, so you just download the first multiplayer part and wait for the whole single player part to install later. That should be awesome. So regardless of what parts of your game you choose to install and play, you will be able to stay abreast of it via a completely revamped user interface, new user interface for the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 4's bare-bones home screen at time feels frozen in amber. You can see what your friends have recently done, or even what the game title that it might be playing at the moment, the same as we do right now at the PlayStation 4. But without launching an individual title, there's no way to tell what single-player missions you could do or what multiplayer matches you can join. PlayStation 5 will change that. Even though it will be fairly fast to boost games, we don't want the player to have to boot the game, see what's up, boot the game, see what's up. Multiplayer game servers will provide the console with the set of joinable activities in real time. Single-player games will provide information like what missions you could do and what rewards you might receive for completing them. And all of those choices will be available in the user interface as well. As a player, you just jump right into whatever you like. So considering, for example, live services games like Destiny 2, The Division 2, Ghost Recon Wildlands, Breakpoint, even Days Gone DLC, all those new activities, you will be able to see them in the PlayStation 5 dashboard and just jump straight into that activity. I think we have like a very archaic version of that with the PlayStation 5 events, but this is a lot more complex. He says this like he says many other things, knowing he'll fend off any follow-up questions that ventures beyond what he wants to talk about, like what does the user interface actually look like, or how big will be the SSD, or even is that a microphone, which is exactly what I asked when Sony has me a prototype of the next generation controller, an unlabeled matte black doohickey that looks an awful lot like the PS4's DualShock 4. After all, there's a little hole in it, and a recently published patent points to Sony developing a voice-driven AI assistant for the PlayStation. Wow, that's totally new. But all I get from Sony is, we'll talk more about it another time. We file patents on a regular basis, a spokesperson told me later, and like many companies, some of these patents end up in our products and some don't. The controller, which history suggests will one day be called the DualShock 5, though Sony just says it doesn't have a name yet, does have some features Sony is more interested in acknowledging. One is adaptive triggers that can offer varying levels of resistance to make shooting a bow and an arrow feel more like a real thing. The tension increasing as you pull the arrow back or make a machine gun feel far different from a shotgun. It also boasts haptic feedback, far more capable than the rumble motor console gamers are used to, with highly programmable voice coil actuators located in the left and the right grips of the controller. Combined with an improved speaker on the controller, the haptics can enable some astonishing effects. First, I played through a series of short demos, courtesy of the same Japan studio that the team that designed PlayStation VR's Astro Bot Rescue mission. In the most impressive, I ran a character through a platform level featuring a number of different surfaces, all of which gave distinct and surprisingly immersive tactical experience. Sand felt slow and sluggy, mud felt slow and soggy. On ice, a high-frequency response made the thumbstick really feel like my character was gliding, jumping into a pool. I got a sense of the resistance of water on a wooden bridge, a bouncy sensation. Next, a version of Gran Turismo Sport that Sony has ported over to a PS5 dev kit. A dev kit that on a quick glance looks a lot like the one of Gizmodo reported last week. The company refused to comment on questions about how the dev kit's form factor might compare to what's being considered for the consumer product. Driving on the border between the track and the dirt, I could feel both surfaces. Doing the same thing on the same track using a DualShock 4 on a PlayStation 4, the sensation disappeared entirely. It wasn't that the old-style rumble feedback paled in comparison, it was that there was no feedback at all. User tests found that the rumble feedback was too tiring to use continuously, so the released version of GT Sport simply didn't use it. The difference has been a long time coming. Product manager Toshi Aoki says that the controller team has been working on haptic feedback since the DualShock 4 was in development, so this is basically like 10 years in development, even probably more. They even could have included in PlayStation 4 Pro the mid-cycle refresh, though doing so would have created a split experience for gamers, so the feature suite was held for the next generation. There are some other small improvements over the DualShock 4. Next-gen controller uses a USB Type-C connector for charging, and you can play through a cable as well. Its larger capacity battery and haptics motors make the new controller a bit heavier than DualShock 4, but Aoki says it will still come in a bit lighter than the current Xbox controller with batteries in it. How game studios will use all these new features, from previously known ones like the SSD and ray tracing acceleration to newer ones like the controller and real-time user interface. While a number of studios already had their PS5 dev kits, the controller prototypes began rolling out much more recently, and no one is ready to name specific titles that they are developing for the PlayStation 5. We're working on a big one right now, says Marco Frosch, president of Blue Point Games, which most recently worked on last year's PlayStation 4's remake of Shadow of the Colossus. I'll let you figure out the rest. And that doesn't mean that they're not exploring. The SSD has me really excited, Frosch says. You don't need to do gameplay hacks anymore to artificially slow players down, lock them behind doors, anything like that. Back in the cartridge days, games used to load instantly, and we're kind of going back to what consoles used to be. I could be really specific and talk about experimenting with ambient occlusion techniques or the examination of ray trace shadows, says Laura Meal, Chief Studio Officer for EA. More generally, we're seeing the GPU be able to power machine learning for all sorts of really interesting advancements in the gameplay and other tools. Above all, Mealy adds, it's the speed of everything that will define the next crop of consoles. We're stepping into a generation of immediacy. In mobile games, we expect a game to download in moments and to be just a few taps from jumping right in. Now, we're able to tackle that in a big way. This is gonna be really good, and it's only the start, so we have one more year. I wonder when they will be officially announced. I hope next year, 2020, they will be actually doing something around E3. They must do that, and they should reveal everything just in a single package. But yeah, that was it. Thank you for watching this lengthy video. Hope this was useful, and I'll catch you with any more news that come from PlayStation 5 here in the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you later.